So, it's a pleasure to be here. And, I figured, okay, we're coming to give a presentation, but, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say that experiencing the beginning of, I guess, what I would call worship, I'm not sure what you call it, but 11 o'clock, I'm usually at Quaker meeting. And we begin with silence, and people speak out of that silence. So that 2 minutes of silence, made me feel at home. And then, the Traditional Music Society, we do a lot of singing and dance, and that song was absolutely spirit-led and so much focused on, I think, what brings us together here today. I think Judy has done an excellent job of describing the mission of Braver Angels. I think it's probably pretty clear how that relates not only to my faith as a Quaker, but I think to yours, right? Your dedication to rational discourse to create a more just and ethical world. So, we're here today to share Braver Angels and, hopefully enlist us working together for this common goal. She mentioned the family. So the personal is political. And what I want to do is start off just by sharing my family situation, which really I think helps explain why I'm interested in Braver Angels almost as a family necessity, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. So let me try to do this quickly. Late 90s. My daughter is in college, but she's home for the summer. The internet has just happened. AOL chat room. This is probably ancient history. She goes on, she meets this man on the AOL chat room. They become interested in each other. She does the smart thing. She goes off and arranges to meet him at some neutral site to make sure that what he was saying actually turned out to be the case. They continued communication. He came to visit her in college. There was a bond there, and Thanksgiving time, she says, I've met this guy, I want you to meet him. I really like him. So, we asked the question, where'd you meet him? AOL chat room. Okay. Tell me something about him. Previously married. Okay. No college education. Prison guard. Okay. Weapons expert in the Air Force. Quaker pacifist. I'm going, you get the picture, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. I'm loving and liberal and accepting, but, he's not my people, right? We like to say that we are, tolerant, but there's that deep tribal, right, thing that is in each one of us that goes back, to the beginning of time. He comes, we meet him, he's really, wonderful. And what am I going to do, right? I've got no power in this situation. They get married. They've got, 4 children, wonderful grandkids. He's a great father, with the, feet of clay that we all have as fathers. But the key part is, here we are, 2016 is coming up, right? And, he has some of those resentments that white working class males in particular have. And Trump comes along and he's able to give what? He's able to articulate those resentments, that feeling of condescension. And I'll never forget that moment, the Hillary, made a faux pas, right? When she said, that thing, where she talked about Yeah, they, they get bitter, right? They cling to their guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them to explain their frustrations. The condescension, the judgment, Trump, Trump's his man, right? So that's part of the family. Then our youngest, he's adopted. He is biracial. He grew up, incredibly talented kid, good athlete. By the time he's in high school, he is tall, dark, and handsome. The girls are, they come up to me and go, "Oh, Nathan's so cute," He's an incredible athlete. He was drafted. He got a scholarship to play at Chapel Hill College. Got drafted by the Colorado Rockies. A good musician. Didn't really have to deal too much with, racial issues. North Shore, et cetera, et cetera. He goes off to college, and I think there's that moment. I just saw the documentary about Barack last night, and Barack went through the same thing. In college, that need to kind of search for identity, right? Make sense of what's happening in the world. And, he's adopted, so I think that search is even more difficult. His father is Jamaican. He never knew his father. Birth father we're talking about. And, for him, he's going through some difficulties. The Jamaica Rasta, we won't go into that, but the Ethiopian thing, the fact that Ethiopia was the only African country not conquered by European power. He gets into, Afrocentrism, some stuff that is like, Plato, the Greeks, all these people took these ideas from Egypt. They're really from Egypt. Horus, Jesus didn't really exist. He's the Horus myth, that has been appropriated by the West. That kind of thing. So he's kind of moving in this identity. My son-in-law and his wife, our daughter, they're there. George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, right? Kevin, this is the son-in-law. He is, troubled by it, but he adopts the narrative of his tribe. There are bad apples, right, in every occupation. Chauvin was a bad apple. However, the police department as a whole, the corrections department that he was involved in, they've got a tough job. This idea that there's systemic racism, no, he's not buying that. He flies the Blue Lives Matter. I don't know if you don't know that flag, right? You've seen it, right? Blue and white. So he is, very troubled. And of course, the violence that breaks out just confirms, his beliefs that, no, there's something wrong with this movement and this accusation towards police. Nathan, on the other hand, our son, he's 6'5", person of color. He's had some dealings with the police. He is obviously sympathetic to that. It's not just bad apples. There's something more deeply rooted in this problem within the police department, systemic. So systemic, bad apples, either or, we got the truth. Again, the difficulty of right now, the both and, maybe there's a little bit of both and we could kind of do this dialogue. Very hard to do in this circumstances. Facebook, he's in San Diego. family Facebook, you can imagine, right? Posts on this thing. Explosions. Kevin eventually cuts Nate off from his Facebook feed. And, here we are, my wife and I, trying to say, well, this is family, right? There's this family it's not just tribal stuff, but we've got a family that we want to try to keep together. Can't we, this love, sense of humility, forgiveness, all of that kind of stuff. And, it's easy to say, right, that family can overcome these things, but this from what happened in Iraq, right? You had Shia and Sunni families, that marriages, and then, this tribal thing is, wow, it's deep, right? So anyways, that's the situation. We, just recently, he was back. We went up to New Hampshire. That's where our daughter and Kevin live. And, he really didn't want to go, blah, blah, blah. And, it was okay. But he goes in, looking for, obviously, coldness and judgment. And probably he's, a little distance because he feels he's been attacked. But they were civil to one another. And, who knows? We just try to keep working towards that goal. Brave Angels was critical for me in this whole process, right? They've got a workshop, family and politics. Took that workshop. Really important in terms of, again, training us not to be triggered, training to open the ears, tender the heart, control the tongue, which is probably the hardest part of it. Again, to listen, and, great stuff involved with that. Probably more than the techniques is, I think, the values, the ethics, right, that undergird it, right? Obviously, commitment to justice. I think we all, Kevin's committed to justice. Nate, we're all committed to justice. But the importance, I think, and this is where I'm at these days, the importance that justice needs to be tempered or balanced by a sense of mercy, right? A sense of humility, a sense of forgiveness, a sense of love, right? I taught history, and there's so many times when, justice becomes so certain and detached from these other moderating influences that it can lead to incredible, difficult things, right? The French Revolution, right? So certain that aristocrats were evil, people who are still connected to the church were evil. They were a threat to the nation, an existential threat to the nation. Reign of terror, off with their head. Soviet communists, Soviet Union, the bourgeoisie, so decadent and corrupt and evil, that they are a threat, existential threat to getting to that perfect utopia, off with their heads. Hitler, justice claim, right? Germany was stabbed in the back by liberals and Jews. They are a threat, existential threat, and have perpetrated this injustice. They need to be eliminated. So much of what we do, and I'm on conflict transformation and Quaker circles, again, the importance of dancing, right? Justice and peace, and mercy. And again, mercy without justice, right? King wrote his letter from the Birmingham jail to liberal clergymen who were sympathetic to him, but what were they communicating to King? Take your time, right? Be gentle. Don't push too hard. You're causing polarization. And King is saying, wait a minute, that mercy without justice is a problem. So there's what we got, right? All of these difficulties, and I think Braver Angels and the work that's being done is critical in doing that. And I want to turn it over to Alex to continue from there. Alex.
All right, well, yes, still morning. Good morning, everybody. Very, very pleased to be here. I just want to give a little bit of my experience that leads me here, and then we'll get into some of what we like to highlight about Braver Angels and about our alliance here on Long Island. So Herb would tell you that he, in college, was kind of like me, you know, kind of real liberal, go for social justice, all the stuff in the world needs to be changed. He then started leaning, for various reasons, right, and which Braver Angels calls red. I, on the other hand, was that way in college and still am sort of that way. I'm dyed-in-the-wool blue. But my transformation really has had to do with not so much what I aspire, or what I see the country, where I see the country going and what it needs, but more open-minded approach to interacting with people who disagree. And that has been, for me, a life-changing experience, right? When I was young, my family was very democratic, big Kennedy fans. I grew up in India, so I, witnessed and experienced, in many ways, a real unjust poverty and prejudice and caste systems. I went to a Christian high school in the late 60s and early 70s, which opened my mind more to what it is that we are spiritually required to do, us believers, here on earth, which made me lean even further to the left. I went to a very small but strong bastion of conservatism college, where I was a member of a group that was very much liberal, and so that fixed my identity, was me and a few of my friends against this whole institution, and we were very anti-institutionalist. So all of those things brought me to the left. Then somehow I went back to church after quite a while, and my religious reflection, sort of ironically, given my experience in high school, started to open my mind about humanity, and I also taught at a Quaker school with Herb, and the Quakers have this tenet, you may know about it, of that of God within, the light of God within. We all have that, and we need to, let's say, open doors in our hearts so that light shines a little bit more, and that takes a certain devotion. So those kinds of things began to open me up to, like, wait a minute, I am not really being appropriate as a Christian and as a fellow human being. And I found myself getting all tongue-tied with people that disagreed with me. I have a very conservative in-law family, whereas my wife, though, is very liberal like me, so that's kind of interesting. And I had a very hard time talking with them, and so I didn't. We didn't go there, right? That's the third rail. Also, we have neighbors who are very friendly, and we like them. We've been next to them for more than 10 years, and they're very, very conservative. And we get along just fine with them. But when we talked about politics, it was very uncomfortable, right? I mean, I had very strong feelings, and I would sort of emote and pour out a kind of bitterness and disdain, and afterwards I would feel pretty crappy about myself, to be honest with you, right? So this is where I'm talking about where my life sort of changed inwardly, right? When I began to reflect on, gee, if I am a Christian, right, and I am a fellow human being, and I am feeling really uncomfortable with other people sometimes, maybe it's here that's where the problem is. Anyway, so I had a long time friendship with Herb as a fellow teacher at Friends Academy. Then when we retired, we lived near each other. He is involved with this op-ed group in Huntington, which meets every week, and they talk politics. And he invited me to that, and that opened my mind too. I said, wait a minute, I can actually sit here and talk about this, and I can actually sit there and listen. But it was a structured organization, and it worked really well. Herb then got involved with Braver Angels. He invited me to be co-chair of the Long Island Alliance. He's red-leaning, I'm blue-leaning. Each alliance in Braver Angels has a red chair and a blue chair that work together. So that worked out quite well. And we have handouts back there about Long Island Braver Angels Alliance as well as Braver Angels National. Please take one of each, and we have brochures as well. And that'll give you more information about what we do, which we think you would be, you would enjoy very much. So I just want to just sort of say that this morning I read a quote from Bertrand Russell that goes like this: "The secret to happiness is this: let your interests be as wide as possible, and let your reactions to the things and persons that interest you be as far as possible friendly rather than hostile." So with that, let's turn over to Braver Angels a little bit. We'll get Herb going here on the screen in just a second. What is polarization? It is the increase in the proportion of those who are consistently liberal and conservative. That is, just, as soon as something comes up, you automatically take the liberal or the left-leaning, and anything expressed from the other side is to be dismissed. That is polarization, where that, over the past 20 years, according to Pew Research, has grown. The percentages of people who are locked in, left or right, has grown. Also, over the past 2 decades or so, the affective political polarization has increased, according to the polls, right? And that is not only disagreement on political issues, but an increase of personal contempt and distrust for the other side. So now we're vilifying the other side instead of just even vehemently disagreeing. And this has increased in greater numbers. So this is sort of the bad news, right? Pew Research threw this question out there: do you agree with this statement? I would be displeased if my child married somebody of the opposing party. Now, back in 1960, the needle didn't move. Nobody responded that they would be displeased if their child married somebody from another party. In 2014 or 2016, 40 to 50%, depending on which side, but essentially the same on each side, would be displeased if their child married somebody. Well, that's an increase. That's a huge, it's like a 1,000,000% increase, right? The other side is very unfavorable. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Well, back in 1994, 16% of Democrats and 17% of Republicans agreed with that statement. The other side is very unfavorable. In 2014, 38% of Democrats said that, 43% of Republicans, so essentially the same. So a huge increase in this animosity toward the other side. Again, affective polarization, right? And then here's a really good one. This is a recent question that was not asked in previous years. The other side is a threat to the nation's well-being. Okay. Somebody throw out how many, roughly how many, what percentage of people who are politically active think that? Just throw out a number. 70%? Oh, you guys are pessimists. Well, the polling shows that 27% of Democrats will say that, which doesn't seem very high. But listen to the words, though. A threat to the nation's well-being. Not just unfavorable or I don't want my daughter to marry somebody who's conservative, right? This is heavy stuff, in my opinion. And 36% of Republicans say that these days. So that's interesting that you came up with 70%. Because, here you go, the majority on both sides, this is the good news, the majority on both sides is sick of this. Are sick of polarization. They want their representatives to compromise and work with each other. They do not have uniformly conservative or liberal views. Like Herb said, right? He's somewhat economically liberal and on the social side of things, conservative, right? So Herb is in that mixed area in between, right? And that's what Braver Angels is appealing to. Okay. All right, so that's the good news. And the better news is we have ways of addressing this. So Herb, why don't you present a little bit about what's available?
See if I can get the screen sharing going here. Okay, so, really recommend people go to the braverangels.org website. And here are different programs that we sponsor here. So we've got, you got the alliances. The workshops, I think, are probably the most interesting. We have this. Yeah. So here's some of the workshops. Skills in bridging the divide, depolarizing within. Some of us are having trouble within ourselves. I mentioned families and politics. Well, you can just see them, right? One that you might be interested, people live in silos. You often do not have friends that you talk to about politics. There's a program called One-to-One. You sign up, you're blue, they'll give you a red person. It's a structured discussion. I've done 5 or 6 of these things. It's been wonderful. So you might consider doing that as well. Join the organization, check the website out. You don't have to join to do it. Take a workshop, get involved one-on-one. Alex mentioned locally, op-ed. Where's Mika? Mika Lane, right? They've been active in that Huntington Library op-ed discussion group. It's been going on for 15, 20 years. Wonderful opportunity to actually come together with a diverse group and practice this ability to kind of listen and speak articulately without trying to trigger the other side. If you're interested in that, put your name on the mailing list and we'll give you, it's hybrid, so you don't have to come to Huntington Library to do it. And we are also starting, Braver Angels Alliance is starting a new program at the library, hybrid as well. Once a month in the evening, we'll be doing programs. We'll have a topic that we're going to focus on. I think it's going to be politics and education, right? Huge topic. DeSantis, what's happening in Florida, the AP African Studies program. Opportunity to come together, tough issue. And again, try to open the ears, tender the heart, and engage in dialogue. And we will also have opportunities at those same meetings just to throw out topics as well. So these are the kind of things that are available, and I think that covers it, right?
Don't you also do government programs? You go into legislatures?
Yeah, okay, there's also a program called Braver Politics. And this one's been harder to get started here. I had a former student who was on the town board, North Hempstead town board, and representing Great Neck. And, she's kind of a traditional liberal Jew, and Great Neck, I don't know if you know, has become much more orthodox and conservative, and, the school board issues and various other things has become much more polarized, Democrat and Republican. And she wanted to do a Braver Angels thing, but the Democrats said, no, we got to play hardball to win the next election. The Republicans were saying the same thing. And the idea of them actually, there were 2 people that wanted to work across the aisles, and both of the leadership of both parties were saying, no, that's not how you win right now. You got to go for victory, and you got to play, you got to play to the tribes. This is a no-sum, winner-take-all game is being played, and that's kind of the way politics is right now. So, so that's another. There are a bunch of other programs as well. So I think we've covered it. And again, it's a pleasure to come here and, you know, I think it's an opportunity for people of good faith and goodwill to come together and.
Yeah, I just want to say, there's so many people online, and that's fabulous. The handouts give you an email address. If you're interested at all, please email us. And I want to just say this for the people online. It's very easy. It's braverangelsli@gmail.com. So please email us, braverangelsli@gmail.com. Ask any questions, and we'd be obviously happy to hear from you.